本命は元締めの祭りやフェスタ。海王類の海難事故で死んだはずのロジャー時代の大物海賊。
おまけにこいつもだ。
What's up, everybody? We've got some Smoker versus Doflamingo. This is what the people want to see. They want to see decks against Doflamingo, because Doflamingo, he's here to party. He is the new menace that we have to be worried about at your locals and in tournament play. And let's see how Smoker can deal with this specific matchup. Opponent ends up going first here. I think I ended up winning the dice roll and choosing to go second, as second is the preferred curve for the Navy decks, because that allows you to get to Gecko Moria on a pretty solid curve, as well as also being able to play Jack here. Jack is going to be absolutely crucial in this matchup. So we're going to start with the Sengoku. Sengoku is going to be a great early turn play since we don't have a brand new to play. Sengoku being one of the new cards to the starter deck for Smoker, allowing you to discard 2 Navy cards and then draw 3 cards. We end up discarding 1 2K Counter and 1 Ice Age, just because the rest of our hand was a little clunky. We wanted to see some new things to work with here. We ended up pulling a brand new off of the top life as my opponent puts a Weevil into play, swinging 7K into lead. On our 4 Dawn turn, I think likely what we're going to do here is just play out the Borsalino. If not, we could just play out the Hina as just a general body to put into play here, as we don't have a lot of great options in this specific moment. We do want to see Tashigi, and man, I think we're going all the way home here. We're gonna go ahead and do my favorite thing with Smoker, and that is if your opponent plays out a 1-cost character, just constantly minus it, because Smoker has that nice ability to give him plus 1000 on your turn. Now I do make a mistake, or maybe just I forget I leave 1000. I left it on in this specific instance. I think later in the video maybe I get better about it, but on my opponent's turn, Smoker is in fact a 5k, and my opponent knows this as I've communicated this. So no shenanigans happening here. Now if Smoker was a 1k, was a 6k character on both turns like Black Luffy was, that'd be a little nuts. But Smoker was developed in the era of OP08.5, right? Black's first outing in the One Piece card game. So back then we had to attach Dawn to get leader effects here. So I can't minus anything unless I've got a Dawn attached, but I do have that nice little bonus of getting plus 1000 power on my opponent's turn if whatever I minused is now a 0 cost. We don't get to get those free swings like Lucci does, being able to attack, minus something, and mill 2 cards. We don't have that luxury playing these older leaders. But Smoker is gotten a lot of great upgrades. So Tashigi, which we haven't seen yet. Tashigi is one of the best cards for Smoker, is honestly one of the reasons to play Smoker, as well as Sengoku being locked to Navy type leaders. We're just going to play out a Hina here. Hina is going to -4 on the Rebecca, and then we're going to play out Brook here. Brook is another amazing card we want to see here. So Brook's going to -1 on the Buggy and then KO a 0 cost or less. And then we're just going to, I think, just swing 5k at the... We're just going to swing 5k at the Jinbei, and my opponent just lets it go, probably meaning that they have a Gecko Moria in hand to be able to buy that Jinbei back. My hand's looking pretty big, which is normally a good thing, but I am playing against blue, and I'm a little afraid of a pudding at this point. That pudding could come in and absolutely destroy my game plan. I do want to get to at least 8 Dawn, 8 or next 2 turns, right, to be able to play out that Jack, as Jack is going to be one of the best plays I can make in this specific matchup, because Jack combined with my leader ability will allow me to just KO any 4-drop that my opponent plays. My opponent, going for a little bit of a tempo play here, ends up playing the Gravity Blade bottom, decking both my Hina and my Brook. That hurt me in more than one way. Way number 1 is my things got bottom deck, so I lost things on board. Way number 2 is they didn't go to my yard, so no cards in trash means those 2 Gecko Morias in my hand are not looking nearly as good. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing 5k. That does allow me to throw a Rebecca in the yard here, as I will probably end up using that later off of a Gecko Moria. But in this specific instance, I think we're just going to find some time to slam down the Jack here. That Jack can come down and clean up that Marshall D Teach. A little bit of a menace of a card, right? It's just going to continue to give my opponent opportunities to swing a bunch at lead. We're going to go ahead and -1 on the Buggy, and then we're going to go ahead and send 7k at lead. 7k for 1 Dawn. Very, very strong, and allows this leader to kind of pressure, whereas some black leaders don't get to do it nearly as efficiently. We're just going to play out the Jack here. Jack's going to... I'm going to do the effect backwards. We're going to discard then draw, but we should be drawing then discarding. We'll go ahead and fix that and then throw the brand new in the trash anyways. And then kapow, take out the Marshall D Teach. In this specific matchup, I'm just trying to play for board at this point, while also poking face when I find necessary. As Doflamingo typically fills the board just as fast as possible. So Jack being on board does allow me to continuously deal with my opponent's threats. And there is the pudding here. That I had 2 geckos in hand. And that is really unfortunate here. I mean, I'm glad I got to get the Jack out. I think Jack was the biggest card in my hand that I wanted to get into play. And then now we're just going to see a fresh 5-card hand. I think we ended up having 7 cards in hand initially, going down to 5. That is the one thing you have to worry about playing Pudding. It's a forced mulligan. I've been forced to mulligan. And I think I see there, I think there was a brand new, a 2K counter, a Tashigi, and a Sabo. Opponent's going to play out the 4-cost Lol. He's just going to use that to bounce both of his characters to hand. He wanted to stop giving me a target for Smoker. He literally said that as he did it, so it's a little bit of a spiteful play. But hey, Buggy's a great card to put back in hand because Buggy can both serve as a 2K counter and a on-play ability. Yes, we do have the Tashigi in hand. Yes, we do have the Sabo in hand. I'm at 10 Dawn. I'm looking at both Sabo and Tashigi and potentially just going to play them both down this turn. But there's a lot of different options I could go for. I could play out a Gecko and just -1 activate Jack, so I could put some pressure on board. I don't have a lot of cards in the yard. We've got a Rebecca and I think a brand new, so that's enough to do like a generic Gecko play here. As I don't really have a lot of things I need to kill, I can use 1 Dawn on my leader to just -1 on the Law. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to -1 on the Law, and we're going to go ahead and just swing 7 at lead. From as far as I know, my opponent does not have any triggers that could get rid of Jack because my Jack is an 11 cost. And we're just going to activate Jack. We're going to draw 1 card, discard 1 card, get a brand new in the yard, take out the Law, and play out a value Gecko. We're just going to play out the Rebecca into the brand new. Brand new always first. Going to look at the top 3. We see a few cards here. We got an Ice Age, a Tashigi, and a little Tashigi here. I have some choices. My hand is kind of small, and I don't have any 2K counters, so I could be incentivized to take the 2K, but instead looking at a potential way to clear my opponent's board if they decide to do some Jinbei shenanigans, as my opponent showed me that maybe they do have a Gecko Mori in hand. Brooks is just going to come off of Rebecca adding a 2K back to my hand, so I end up finding the best of both worlds. I get an Ice Age and a 2K off the Rebecca. And get a Brook into play. Now, at this specific juncture, I have 2 ways to KO on board. So if my opponent does end up filling the board pretty successfully, I will be able to kind of handle it. So I'm in a really great position going to this turn here. We're both at even life totals. Opponent does have a lot more cards in hand than I do, but I've got some things happening here. And we're going to take a second here to just go ahead and call out, if you're watching this far, join the crew, join the All Blue crew. Subscribe. I'm always uploading content like this. We do retrospective commentary of my specific locals gameplay, talking about tips and tricks for the specific decks that I play, as well as calling out some failures or misplays that I make. So if you enjoy this type of content, definitely subscribe and like the video as well if you enjoy Smoker. The opponent gonna go ahead and attach a bunch to lead here. Gonna go ahead and swing. I think this was a 9 Dawn turn for my opponent. So he's going to just go ahead and swing. I think that's 8K somewhere. But regardless of where it went, Rebecca's just going to jump in front, playing out the Weevil off of the Jinbei, and then playing another Jinbei and playing out another Weevil. My opponent just went from 0 cards on board to a whole threat on board here. And I prepared for this, right? I added the Ice Age to hand. I've got a Brook in play. I've got a Jack. I have several ways to clear my opponent's board. We can use the Gecko to potentially attack into the Jinbei if I really need to. We've got a bunch of ways. We've got that Tashigi as well. So with Tashigi, Brook, and Jack, I could likely KO at least 3 things this turn, as well as swing into the Jinbei, clearing most of my opponent's board, which is absolutely devastating in this specific juncture because my opponent did use quite a few cards from hand, though. Because of Edward Weevil, my opponent's just going to gain those resources back. We're just going to go 5K into Jinbei. Opponent wants to save the pretty Jinbei, so we let him swap it out there. Opponent just lets that go, which gives me a little bit of a tell that he likely has a Gecko Mori in hand, as if he's just letting these Jinbeis go so easily. We're going to play out the Tashigi here. Tashigi's going to jump right in the glare, and we're going to go ahead and pop that Edward Weevil. Oh, man. All right, so -3 there off the leader ability. Because there's already a -4 on board, so nice little effect with Tashigi and Smoker. Tashigi can -4 something, and then Smoker can activate its effect on something else and still see a 0 cost to be able to get that +1K. We're gonna activate Jack here. Jack's going to draw a card, discard a card here. We end up picking a Zengoku. I think we're gonna just discard the brand new, as that Zengoku could end up coming useful later if I draw a lot of clunky cards. Go 5K at lead here. We're gonna -1 onto the buggy and then KO that Jinbei that I ended up Ice Aging. And then we're just going to go 9 at lead here. So 9 at lead, and then we're going to go 7 at lead. Man, I didn't think speeding up the gameplay would cause that glare just to be absolutely miserable to see. I'm probably going to edit that in post. So if you're watching this in post, you're not going to see a glare, right? We're going to my cards are going to be beautiful. You're not going to notice anything. But if you are interested, I did open some PRB, so the One Piece The Best set. I do have an opening up on the channel, and I have a giveaway that I'm running on that specific video. So definitely give it a watch, and you can learn about what I'm giving away. I'm giving away some pretty awesome cards, so if you're new to the game or looking for specific competitively viable SRs, you could jump in on that giveaway. I'll put a link to it right here and probably in the description as well. But opponent's playing out of Doflamingo. My opponent was going to rearrange the top 5 here and debate on what he wants to play out. This is a pretty scary board that my opponent is playing into at this point. I got at least still 2 ways to KO on board. That Jack has just been powering through all my opponent's plays. If my opponent decides to commit a bunch of Dawn to swing at a Jack, I'm just going to absolutely counter it at this point. So kind of in this board stally, like I'm going to stall his board by KOing it, and then I'm going to just continue to push face with some of my bigger threats here. That Jack is likely always going to turn sideways as part of his ability and won't be attacking unless necessary at this point, as it's just so good. That Jack is representing a KO for the Doflamingo here. Opponent's still pondering what he wants to do with the other 7 Dawn on his turn. Could go for a Gravity Blade. Gravity Blade would clean up Brook and Tashigi, but he's still in this awkward situation where I've got several big threats that I could potentially go for lethal on here. I think my opponent only has 3 or 4 cards in hand at this point, as they've been playing out a lot of resources, and I've just been taking care of those resources here in a pretty great spot against Doflamingo. Opponent in the tank here. What you like to see against Doflamingo? That means they're sweating. That means they're scared. That means they're nervous. And I'm just chilling here with my full board, 4 cards in hand, and still 3 life at this point. Again, I'm bad about it. All right, I put the 1k counter on there on my leader. It doesn't matter for my opponent's turn. Still 5k leader. With that in mind, how's everybody enjoying the new starter decks? I'm having a bunch of fun with the Smoker starter deck. A lot of people are having fun with the Dofi one. The Whitebeard one, I definitely think gave some new tools, and then Purple Luffy, obviously, very strong. If there's a specific starter deck or deck that you're playing now, hey, let me know in the comments what deck you've been brewing towards with these new starter deck additions. Opponent here going to activate, swing 8k somewhere, and then play out the Boa Hancock. Boa Hancock is going to rearrange and then potentially add an additional Dawn. If he hasn't already done that, that might have been just a 7k swing actually. And then play out the Gecko Moria. There's the Gecko Moria that we thought we saw. Gecko Moria is instead going to grab a 2k instead of those Jinbeis that he let go earlier in the game. If he was in a better situation at this point, definitely could have grabbed the Jinbeis, but board's not looking too good. That Doflamingo being a 3 cost just means I can easily KO it with my Jack if necessary. But I have a lot of ways I could potentially deal with my opponent here. I have several threats on board. My opponent has only got like 3 or 4 cards in hand. I could likely go for lethal this specific turn if I really wanted to, or I could draw it out for another turn here and just go for clearing up my opponent's board. This kind of I did ask him some questions. I asked him if he what's he got in his yard here, just to see what potentially could be in his hand. I know he has at least 1 2k in hand at this point, but Doflamingo does run quite a few 2ks, so we could expect that many as well. I've got the Sawbone plan. I was debating on using the 5 cost T-Bone to potentially, in addition to my Smoker's ability to be able to KO something without having to use Jack. So first we're going to start with a Smoker activation. We're going to -1 on the Bucky, making my Smoker leader an 8k here. And we're going to activate Jack. Yep, so we're just going to go for Jack here. Jack is going to KO something. I have an Ice Age in my hand now, which I might end up keeping in my hand as it's a pretty valuable target. We're just going to get rid of this Sengoku, KO the Doflamingo, and now we're in this situation where I can go 8k at lead. Opponent's going to show me 2 2ks. All right, opponent's down to two cards in hand. I think at this point I can kind of math it out here. We're going to go with 7k at lead, which would cost 2 cards in my opponent's hand. My opponent shows me 2 cards. Well, when your opponent shows you 2 cards, okay. We're in this situation where I could just go 9. I could go 5 and then 9, right? We could also just try to clear the board a little bit. So yeah, we're just... At this point, since my opponent basically stopped me from going for lethal, I'm just going to instead deal with his board a little bit. We're going to then play out a Sabo, just saying, hey, I got one more blocker on board. I'm at 3 life and a blocker. I'm going to end up having 4 cards in hand. I'm in a very, very, very good spot here going to my opponent's turn. Doflamingo known for not having any rush cards, so not really that effect. He ends up playing out the red rock here, initially going to target the Gecko Mario, but was like, I gotta get that Jack out of here. He was telling me he wished he had that card like 5 turns ago, because that Jack has just been absolutely destroying his board here. So Jack is gone. Opponent used 6 Dawn for that. I am not upset because my opponent is 1 card in hand, 1 card in life. I have multiple threats on board. I am feeling pretty confident that this game is pretty much sealed up at its end. My opponent's going to go ahead and tap 4. Going to play out a Lull. Lull's going to bounce 2 cards back to hand, basically making him have a 1k and a 2k in hand. I have exactly perfect information going to this turn, meaning that an 8k swing is going to go through, and then a rest of its swing. So I think here what we're going to do is just attach 2 to Shishigi. We're going to go 8k lead. Opponent has to take it, and then we're going to go the rest of it, and then opponent's going to take the game. He ended up showing a Kaido off last life there and taking him out. You can definitely do it on Smoker, but it sometimes can be a hard matchup if they go fast really early. If you like this type of gameplay, definitely subscribe and leave a like, and we'll see you in the next video.